I'm Josh with Skid Pro, and today we're going to go over how to hook up your new attachment. Each attachment can be a little different. Some have hydraulic hoses, some have none, some have electrical control harnesses, but for the most part, they're similar enough that we'll cover the generalities here the best we can. Prior to mounting your new Skid Pro attachment, ensure that your universal skid steer QT coupler on your machine and your universal QT plate on your attachment are clean and free of dirt or debris. Some of you will have manual QT lockdowns, while many of you will have a hydraulic button to activate from your cab. I can't stress enough that it is your responsibility to be familiar with your skid steer carrier functionality. Additionally, we assume you've checked all fluid levels on your machine and everything is in spec and operating optimally. Next, slowly drive up to your attachment. Tilt the skid steer coupler forward and slide it into the QT plate. Tilt the coupler back slowly and make sure it is grabbing at the top lip of the QT plate. Once fully tilted back, your QT plate should slide down on your coupler and be fully seated on the skid steer coupler. It is imperative that you make sure the top lip of the attachment is fully seated at the top of the coupler. There's often wear marks on the machine's coupler to be able to reference. If this is not fully seated, you will not be able to lock in your QT pins at the bottom of the attachment to secure it to the carrier. If your machine has a hydraulic-powered quick coupler, press and hold the lock button to secure your coupler pins to the QT plate. Most machines have red or orange indicators showing an attachment is fully locked, or they have clear visibility down to the locking cylinder. If your machine has manual pins, you'll have to exit the cab and manually push down the locking levers to secure the QT plate. Next, it's important to ensure your attachment is connected properly and the pins are driven down through the QT plate. To do this, you must first be in an unobstructed area with no bystanders. You can then carefully lift the attachment up and visually check from the operator's cab to make sure the pins are through the QT plate. It is very important to give a quick check on the fit of your new attachment and the clearance of attachment and machine carrier. If your attachment utilizes cylinders or motors, it has hydraulic hoses that need to be connected. The first step in connecting a hydraulic attachment is to release the pressure of your hydraulics on the machine side. This can be done a number of ways depending on your machine and its options. It is best to consult your machine's owner's manual to determine what method is used to relieve any possible machine line hydraulic pressure. Most newer machines utilize a relief manifold right at the hookup point of the couplers. In this case, relieving pressure is done by simply pressing in on the hydraulic male and female coupler on your skid steer until they slide inward. This opens up the hydraulic manifold and releases any pressure that may be in the lines or at the point of the couplers. Next step, you want to wipe the couplers clean of any dirt or debris to keep your machine's hydraulic system and oil as clean as possible for longer life and better performance. When disconnecting your hoses, you will also want to release the pressure of your hydraulics by pushing in the hydraulic couplers like we have done previously. I prefer to relieve pressure while the hoses are still attached to the manifold, so it alleviates pressure on both the machine side and the attachment side. Some older machines have a button in the cab, or you will go through a series of steps during shutdown to alleviate any line pressure. Again, consult your owner's manual or talk to your local machine dealer. Another consideration is the potential buildup of pressure inside the attachment itself when it's unhooked. This most often happens if pressure wasn't relieved prior to detaching, 2, grapples or other hydraulic cylinders were left in the up position when detached, and the weight of the grapple has put pressure on the entire hydraulic system, building pressure, or 3, the attachment sits out in the sun or sustains significant temperature changes, it can also build pressure in the attachment side. Any of these instances can cause additional pressure to build up in the hydraulic lines. If this occurs and you are having trouble plugging in your couplers to your machine, you will have to release the built-up pressure on the attachment side by cracking the lines and draining a small amount of oil out of your hoses. To do this, you must slightly open the coupler fitting on the hose and allow some oil to drain out. It won't take much oil, and the pressure should be relieved, and you can easily plug the coupler in. If you're still struggling, you will need to drain more oil to relieve more pressure. We always recommend you drain oil onto a safe surface and dispose of properly. A helpful hint I learned a long time ago to lessen the issue of hydraulic line pressure is to plug the male and the female coupler on the attachment into themselves. I do this every time I remove an attachment. It not only helps to equalize the pressure in the lines, it helps keep the couplers clean and ready to use. Another bonus is it lends itself to coupler longevity. Oftentimes, they are on pavement or concrete, or just due to the weight of the hoses, the coupler can fall back and hit the machine or the attachment, causing a hard impact. These impacts can easily lead to coupler failure by cracking an internal component needed for proper locking of the coupler to the machine. Hoses and couplers should be given extra care as they are the least durable part of any attachment. Now, back to hooking up the hoses. Some attachments, such as our mulchers, come with a third hose and coupler. This smaller line and coupler is a case-strain coupler. If the attachment has a case-strain coupler, it is imperative for it to be connected during operation, as this is an integral part of the machine's safety bypass. Failure to hook up the case-strain coupler could lead to damage to your attachment or skid steer. Hooking up the hydraulic couplers is easy by simply grabbing the male on the attachment side and hooking it into the female on the machine side, and also doing that with the female to the male on the machine side. Make sure that if your female adapter has a loop and ball indentation, to align that properly, or the coupler will not fully attach. Next, and this is critically important, examine your hoses and hose routing. Make sure that there are no clamping or pinch points. Common pinch points are between the back of the machine QT coupler and the front of the loader arms, and anywhere around that QT coupler on the machine. The danger zone of hose pinching is when you roll that bucket tilt all the way back. The other area of concern with hoses is having them hanging too far out away from the skid loader, where they can catch on something out in the field and get torn. I can't overstate, damage to hydraulic hoses are the #1 cause for downtime on the job. It is not only critically important, it is also the customer's responsibility to manage hoses to reduce the likelihood of damage. Hose routing is very much personal preference, and there isn't a wrong way to do it. Just make sure you have a plan and execute it to have maximum uptime and enjoyment in the field. If your attachment utilizes electric over hydraulic controls and you have machine-specific controls, simply hook in your wire harness plug to the machine. Most machines use a twist lock type of cannon plug similar to this, where you need to align the orientation to the proper notches and then gently push on and twist to lock in place. If you do not have machine-specific controls, you will need to set up your universal toggle in your cab and supply 12 volts of electricity to power it. For more information on this setup, see the link at the end of the video or request this video from your product guru. After giving a good visual inspection, it's time to jump back into your skid loader and double check that you have a full range of motion of your attachment to verify clearance and hose routing is safe and operational. Then, Test electric over hydraulic controls to make sure all attachment functions are working properly. In the case of a snowblower, you would need to engage the hydraulics and then test your electric over hydraulic functions. After you check for attachment fit and function, you're ready to go to work. If your attachment has a hydraulic motor, we strongly recommend a motor break-in process for optimal motor life. This is simply done by finding a safe and appropriate place to engage the hydraulic motor on your attachment. This is usually outside in an open space with no bystanders. Then, reference the continuous flow button in your cab and press that before locking in your attachment. For those of you that are new to attachments like our snowblower, where the hydraulics are always engaged, versus say a grapple, where you're running the hydraulics on and off intermittently, a snowblower, you want to engage and lock the hydraulics on so you don't have to hold the button the entire time you're operating it. Not only would this be uncomfortable for the operator, it can be hard on your machine or attachment, as the operator may accidentally slip in and out of engagement. Now back to continuous flow. All machines have them. Some older machines use a physical latch or locking lever, while most new machines utilize a button in the cab. Follow your manufacturer procedure and turn on the hydraulic flow at low engine RPMs. It is important to engage at low RPMs because on a skid steer, as engine RPM increases, correspondingly higher gallons per minute increase. Proper attachment hydraulic motor break-in requires 10 minutes of continuous operation at low RPMs. Once you've accomplished that, your motor is broke in and ready to be used. Now that you have ensured that your attachment is connected properly, all your functions are working as desired, and your hose routing is free of pinching, go out and enjoy your Skid Pro attachment. Again, thank you for your business, and as always, we'll continue to strive to live by our motto of better products, better service, happier customers.